We need to start living in a world where we do not allow religious extremists to set government policy and to persecute and murder minorities based simply on beliefs that they don't agree with.
I totally agree. That's why the Jewish settlers in the West Bank should all be removed. And they are religious zealots who've been killing the Palestinians and taking their land.
And that's where I fully agree with you as well. I'm no defender of settlers expanding in the West Bank and of being violent and mistreating Palestinian people. It's disgusting. It should be punished. It should be stopped. And that needs to also be with world pressure on groups like Hamas to stop murdering and sending terrorists and missiles constantly.
And of course, we have to stop the genocidal government of Israel, who has butchered 58,000 people in Gaza, over 20,000 kids killed by the IDF.
A week ago, deadly clashes broke out in Syria's southern province of Sweda. The fighting initially between local Druze militias and Sunni Muslim Bedouin tribes claiming to want to restore order. The newly installed government's forces intervened, but instead tried to take control of Sweda from the Druze people, killing between 900 and 1,100 civilians. And some government fighters allegedly, and based on gruesome videos I personally have seen, executing Druze civilians, making them jump off of balconies while shooting them, and burning and looting their homes and kidnapping women and children. Driven by concerns about security and domestic politics, Israel intervened on behalf of the Druze, who are seen as a loyal minority within Israel and often serve in its military. This is not the first time sectarian violence has broken out since Assad fell either. A few months after Assad fled and after a transition that initially was mostly peaceful, government forces and pro-Assad armed groups clashed on Syria's coast that spurred sectarian attacks that killed hundreds of civilians from the Alawite religious minority to which Assad belongs. Those killings left other minority groups, including the Druze in the south and the Kurds in the northeast, wary that the country's new leaders would protect them. Would or would not rather protect them. It's possible the Kurds, like the Druze, might look to Israel for support, but Turkey is unlikely to stand by idly if they do, according to Dareen Khalifa, a senior advisor at the International Crisis Group. The barbarism of the Islamist Syrian troops has been hard to fathom in this last week. Dr. Talat Amer, a surgeon at Sweda National Hospital in southern Syria, worked tirelessly for 3 days as bombs fell and the building came under siege from government and militia forces. On the fourth day of fighting in the Druze majority city, Dr. Amer himself was shot in the head as he tried to return to work. He was dressed in scrubs and they executed him. Then they called his wife on the phone, on his phone, and bragged about it. Sammy, a surgeon at the hospital, told the Telegraph. Witnesses reported it was regime forces wearing Islamic State badges on their military fatigues. Syrian soldiers, many of whom came from former jihadist ranks, are accused of aligning with other militias and attacking Druze fighters and civilians, carrying out a bloody rampage across the city. Videos from inside the hospital show corpses piled up in hallways, floors soaked with blood, body bags stacked high, and an overflow makeshift morgue set up outside. When Sammy returned to the hospital on Thursday, passing by the bodies of civilians littering the roads, he found the scene of a massacre with a Syrian tank at the front entrance. The Druze, whose religion is rooted in Islam but do not identify as Muslim, have faced a history of persecution. The Druze religious sect began as a 10th century offshoot of Ismailism, a branch of Shiite Islam. More than half of the only roughly 1 million Druze worldwide live in Syria. The other of the Druze live in Lebanon and Israel. Nawaf al-Shibli, a medical doctor and peace activist from the outskirts of Sweda, described feeling powerless. Quote, "We are peaceful. We do not usually fight. We want to help others. Our saying is to hurt no one, love all, serve all." Inside the city, residents are pleading for help from outside the community, saying that aid is not reaching them as militias have blocked all the roads. Please, we need help. Time is running out. Why isn't anyone helping us? The interim government led by Ahmed al-Shara has tried and so far failed to unite Syria's diverse religious and ethnic factions since the ousting of Bashar al-Assad in December. The former al-Qaeda leader, now in charge of Syria, turned statesman of Syria, has promised tolerance and acceptance. Authorities have been accused repeatedly, however, of trampling over the rights of the country's diverse minorities. Syrians from minority communities living in London and Paris have been protesting, calling for an end to supporting al-Shara. Demonstrators in the British capital held up placards calling for an end to the deadly violence in Sweden and for a humanitarian corridor to be set up via the Jordanian border. In London, protest organizer Ahmad al-Asmi told AFP, Atrocities were still going on in Sweden. Shootings, beheadings, raping, killing children, torching shops, homes. It's a barbarian movement going on in Sweden. He said of the protests at the BBC headquarters. William Salha, like most of the protesters, also has family members still living in Sweden. He said they were helpless, shut in their homes, attempting to keep themselves safe. It's like ethnic cleansing. They want the city without its people, he said, accusing the Syrian government of complicity. A really scary, very undercovered story of some really horrible atrocities happening right now under the Islamist Syrian government. Cenk?
Yeah, so first of all, is it terrible? Of course it is. Secondly, I mean, on a personal note for me, we have part of our family, we're not really sure where they're from, the John Balots, but they could be Druze, they could be Kurds, but they're very, that name in our family is very similar to the Jumblots, who are a very famous Druze family in Lebanon. I just tell you that because not only does my heart go out to anyone who's being killed in these vicious ways, but I mean, these people might literally be in some ways ethnically related to me. So now, does that justify the intervention of foreign countries? No. And so that might be a controversial point of view, but I don't think it is. So we could debate that. Turkey and Israel's intentions here are not good. They are trying to carve out parts of Syria for themselves. So Turkey would like the north demilitarized because that's where the Kurds are. The Kurds have been American allies, but the Turks consider them terrorists because they work with the PKK, which is they claim they work with the PKK, which is a terrorist Kurdish group inside Turkey. Israel would like Western Syria for themselves. They're the ones doing most of the bombing. So they say, oh, well, I'm really concerned about the Druze minority. Maybe they do have a Druze minority in Israel, and they're good, loyal citizens of Israel. They want to look out for them. But Israel also wants all of their neighbors totally neutered, demilitarized, humbled, and unable to fight back. So conveniently, they didn't just do the bombings here in that area, they also did bombings in Damascus, including the military headquarters of the entire Syrian government, and they bombed near the presidential palace as a, hey, don't forget, if you don't know that we're in charge, we could kill you too. And Israel apparently reserves the right to kill any foreign leaders they like because self-defense. And so I question everyone's motives here. And the number one thing I would say is, look, who could have figured out that a former Al-Qaeda guy might turn out to do bad things, and that there would be massive sectarian conflict if you take away the current government of Syria. Now, the current government of Syria was a disaster. Bashar al-Assad was a butcher. So no one cried when he left. But when Israel and Turkey were like, oh no, we're positive the former Al-Qaeda guy is going to be great, I was like, I am not positive of that. That is a terrible idea. And here we are in the middle of that terrible idea.
Yeah, I agree a lot with what you said. I don't remember many in the Israeli government saying this guy was going to be a great leader. They've kind of protested him from the beginning as being somebody who's been an enemy of theirs for a long time. Trump certainly gave this guy complete faith and removed all sanctions on Syria, kind of sight unseen after one quick meeting when he said he's a very handsome, very strong, good-looking guy, and that apparently is enough to remove sanctions on a longtime thorn in the side of the West and those who are trying to just pursue freedom in this world. I think that the Druze are a minority, as any minority group that's being wantonly attacked by the powers that be should be defended. And if that requires another country to do it, because there is no army to be able to stop a beginnings of what could be an ethnic cleansing, I think that is a good thing to try to do.
Yeah, I just don't believe them. I don't believe the Turks, I don't believe the Israelis. I believe that their intention is power. It's not to help an ethnic minority. And whenever we bomb to theoretically help ethnic minorities, how's that worked out for us, including America? It's worked out terribly. So look, it puts you in a no-win situation. The Druze and Bedouins started killing each other first before the government even got involved. The government is not from either one of those groups. And then now the government is killing Alawites. That was the sectarian sect of the former leader, Bashar al-Assad, right? So, and no one's trying to protect the Alawites because Turkey doesn't have an interest in them, Israel doesn't have an interest, US doesn't have an interest, so they're getting killed with no checks at all. So, like, and we lived through this in Libya. and where they're like, oh no, trust us. We'll get rid of Gaddafi and there won't be any sectarian problems. No, that's absurd. There was massive sectarian problems. It's the most obvious thing in the world. And lastly, Ben, to the point about Israelis. No, the Israelis did significant bombing in Syria. That's what weakened Assad in the first place and allowed this guy to win. I get wanting to get rid of Assad, and Israel did more than anyone to do that. And you could give him a congratulations on that if you like, because Assad was a terrible guy. But that's what I mean by they were like, okay, good, Assad is replaced. And I'm like, no, not good. Replaced by a former Al Qaeda guy, and here we are.
Yeah, that's a good point. It certainly matters who takes over power, but I also think just the larger point is we need to start living in a world where we do not allow religious extremists to set government policy and to persecute and murder minorities based simply on beliefs that they don't agree with. We have to get out of the dark ages with that. It's insane.
I totally agree. That's why the Jewish settlers in the West Bank should all be removed. And they are religious zealots who've been killing the Palestinians and taking their land. So if we could do it consistently, that would be amazing. And if we could do it without further war, further strife, that I would love that. But so far, this region of the world does not have a good record of protecting ethnic minorities, including Palestinians.
And that's where I fully agree with you as well. I'm no defender of settlers expanding in the West Bank and of being violent and mistreating Palestinian people. It's disgusting. It should be punished. It should be stopped. It should be enforced harshly to make sure that does not happen. And the same exact needs to be done with any place where religious extremism continues. And that needs to also be with world pressure on groups like Hamas to stop murdering and sending terrorists and missiles constantly, even when claiming that they need this war to stop, but they keep attacking and promising this jihad at the same time. And it has to happen with this newly forming government in Syria as well, where the world needs to say, if you want to be a player in the world community, in no instances can this be accepted. You're no ally of the world if that's the way you're going to go about your business.
And of course, we have to stop the genocidal government of Israel, who has butchered 58,000 people in Gaza, over 20,000 kids killed by the IDF. I'm sorry, it was all an accident. They missed every time. All right, our points of view on that are clear on both sides. I wish everybody would act with principle and decency. Hasn't happened yet. Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.